Welcome back to another episode of Pushing Back Chaos with me, Paul Mellon McFadden. How you going there, Raph? You look a bit sleepy. You look like the Sandman is still sprinkling dust in the corners of your eye.
Oh, dude, it's early, but I'm up. I just haven't been able to get my routine, but I will once we're done talking.
It's like, oh my God, early, right where you are.
Yeah, I think I woke up like at 3:40. No, I didn't. I don't think. I know I did. Yeah, 3:40. But it's all good, man. Obviously, we had to adjust for Mike's punk ass. So I guess this pretty much means that I don't get the show notes, which was worth waking up for.
Yeah. No, that's true, man. I'm gonna take the hit on this one. So yeah. We always try to make things work and adjust. And I had to hit the guys last night and say, hey man, I need to push left 1 hour because of work stuff. And it is what it is. Uncle Sam doesn't give a shit sometimes, but I know Raph does when he loses his beauty sleep. So I'll take the show notes this week. If they suck, just message me and emasculate me. It's fine.
I'd imagine most of our listeners, like we've got a lot of military veteran and first responder and families of such. They all know what happens when the report time or the mustering time changes. You just got to do what you got to do, right? And being told as you're walking out the door that tomorrow's report time's earlier, that's none of us are surprised when that happens. We're not happy about it, but it does happen, right?
Yeah, there's that term called hurry up and wait. It's this new concept. It works every single time. It's so beneficial in your life. If you take away anything from this podcast, hurry up and wait. The best thing you could ever do.
Yeah. I saw some like a letter from a Roman soldier written like 2,000 years ago, and he refers to some of the same stuff. And you're like, it was a letter to his dad. Pretty cool.
It's all dick jokes, and it's funny how like that's just transcended, especially history, but military history specifically. Like I think we talked about this before in one of the episodes where you said you're like, but you spoke in your half-wit Australian language, but you're basically saying like, I bet you that you could pluck a soldier from every generation, like every major conflict, and they'd all be able to like talk the same language. Maybe like the vernacular would be a little different, but like the things that they would make fun of, like nothing has really changed, at the end of the day.
It'd only take 5 minutes and they'd all be using each other's slang and each other's shit.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah. For sure.
They'd all be finishing off with a frothy together and they'd be like, yeah, all of our lives suck.
So I'll just do a quick little spiel here, just because there may be people joining us who are new to the podcast. So Pushing Back Chaos, there's three of us. We are Mellon and Raph. We're both retired, former military pilots. Both of us are still flying. I was started in the Australian Army back in the day, and then Australian Air Force. And then now I'm a flying instructor in Saudi Arabia. Raph started as a corpsman back in the day. I also was an enlisted soldier in the Australian Army at the beginning. Raph was a corpsman and then switched over to the dark art of flying Black Hawk helicopters. And we met up in Saudi Arabia. And then the Pushing Back Chaos patch that's stuck over the head of Mike is mainly for the people's retinas so we don't damage with the photons bouncing off his face, which is pretty grim. Just think Freddy Krueger or the big guy out of the Goonies with a head that's sort of half melted. But Mike's a serving member, current member of the US SF community, so that's why we don't show his head on tape. And the three of us have been doing a podcast together now for, we're actually pushing towards the third year, which is pretty extraordinary. So we started as Not Your Average Operator, and we switched over to Pushing Back Chaos. And this is our 34th podcast, and we try to get them out every week for you, our listeners, focusing on areas that are important to us. Men talking about things that probably not that many men talk about hard times and how to deal with them, and trying to be a better person, be a husband, father, better professional, better teammate, trying to take on the big stuff. But anyway, that's enough about us. Raph, you had an idea this week that we're going to talk about goal setting and the importance of having stuff out in front of you that motivates us and draws out of us the best and gives us meaning and something to strive after. And maybe you could just give us a little bit of an intro on the topic and what your thoughts have been.
Yeah, man. Thanks for that intro. So we talked about this a little bit offline, just really through messaging, but I've been on this, I shouldn't even say Jordan Peterson kick because I listen to him all the time, but for some reason, the last couple of weeks, a lot of his messaging, at least the stuff that I was getting into, it's older content, but a lot of it has been regarding him and just talking about, essentially that we are, of all things, we are aiming creatures, meaning if you don't have a goal, like if you ever feel like you're just in the middle of the ocean with no rudder, it's probably because you don't have a goal. But more importantly, it's because you don't have a noble goal, right? Because, and again, this is Jordan Peterson level thinking. So, and I'm just an amoeba. So I'm barely trying to understand it, but it makes sense. And it made so much sense that I think I told you guys, I kept listening to this mashup of him talking about it for like over 20 times. Like I would listen to it before I started working out. I would listen to it after my workouts. I would listen to it, when I was walking, because I try to get, at least 5 miles every day. But yeah, I would just listen to it. And I was just, because it really was resonating with me. And he does entire pieces on it. So I'm just going to talk about the three kind of things that stuck out the most. And obviously he right off the bat, he says, human beings, we are aiming creatures. It's wired in us. So if you go around life thinking that, you're just going to do what you want without a purpose, you're dead wrong. Like you're literally dead wrong. And it's a matter of time before you, like you said, you're going to feel like you're this boat without a rudder out in the middle of the ocean. And when the storms come, man, you have no direction, right? You're fucked. Like you're proper fucked. And that's one way to think about it. But he said, more importantly, just setting a goal. Now that we've established that we're aiming creatures, just setting any goal is kind of good, but it's also very dangerous. And that's where it really, that's when it kind of ticked. You have to be really careful what you aim at, right? Mm. If your goal is to, be aesthetically pleasing or whatever, well, you might attract that sort of environment where it's all just superficial and, everybody's good looking, but there's nothing in the depth. There's nothing in the surfaces. So with that, he says, be careful what you aim at because the world will manifest itself. And more importantly, the nobler the goal, the better your life will be, So now, what does that look like for everybody? Well, for everybody, it's a little different, right? I would say for me, well, I'll tell you, I'll give you my kind of definition of what I think my noble path will be, but it's usually something that's really difficult to achieve, and it should be, right? And it's something that you might not be able to do by yourself, but that's the idea, is that the nobler the goal, that means the better the person that you're going to be, and the more the people are going to want to help you achieve that goal, whether it's the world at large or your friends, your family, whatever it is. Because obviously if your goal was to sell drugs, then no one's going to be a part of that. I mean, it's just, the stark contrast. The other one is, life's mission is real simple. It's to improve your character every day. Improve your character every day. That's exactly what it is. Improve your character every day. That is literally your life. When your rate goes up, you will have the sense of, I have done everything I possibly could with this finite amount of time on this planet, screaming across the universe, right? And we can talk about our existence and all that stuff, but he basically said the human spirit is basically, if you give it the tools, it will defeat death. And all he means by that is you'll get to the point where your expiration shows up and you're not afraid of death because you've actually lived, you've actually made an impact in this world. You've established relationships and you have a family, and you've done your part, so to speak. And that's very intrinsic, and it's really important to understand. And then the last one that really stuck with me, and I thought about this, and obviously because I have a son, so I think it's pretty.
Damn it, Tio. Well, so as you guys can see, look at his face up there. It froze, and he just looked completely like he just woke up and had something going on with him. But now that he's back, we'll continue on because it's a little harder to edit the video. But go ahead, back to what you were saying there, Tio.
Yeah, sorry about that. The last one's probably the most important. And he just says, you want to be the strongest person at your father's funeral. Specifically, he says this to young men because it kind of represents like a transgenerational kind of shift, right? So it's like Melon passing the torch to Michael, so on and so forth. And he says it, but it's important for a couple of reasons. You want to be the strongest person at your father's funeral because when people are, and it's kind of a metaphor, but it's also, indication of like what happens in real life is when you're in a room full of grieving people because chaos had just ensued. You want to be the strongest person because that kind of gives people hope. And knowing that like in the face of all this adversity, like the things that that character can bring, like, building a character, the things that they can bring can actually give you the tools or the fortitude to surpass the chaos and the pain and the suffering. And it's kind of like you're showing them a way out, right? It's like, hey, we're all in pain, but look how stoic he is. And even though we know he's enduring pain, if we follow him, he'll probably, or that person, it doesn't have to be him. It could be a daughter. I mean, I know plenty of daughters that are just complete badasses that carry on in really strong ways. But yeah, those are the three things that, again, there's so much material in this. But these three things, I thought these are pretty important to talk about, right? Because, you don't have to have a 5-year goal or 10-year goal. It could, hopefully it is a goal, a 5 to 10-year goal, but it's something that you need to reevaluate every day and just, figure out if you are on the war path, if you are on the path of achieving that goal that you're trying to do. And then what I was going to say was basically, when I think about, because I meditated on this and I thought, what would be my most noble path? And obviously my most noble path would be to be the strongest man in the room. And hopefully that's something that Soren and other kids and other people can pick up on, right? Now, what does that mean? I mean, it's easy, like, can I deadlift 5,000 pounds? No, that's not what I mean by that. I do want to be physically strong, but I'm thinking like emotionally and intellectually, when there is something completely chaotic where there's real suffering, whatever it is, whether it's climate related, whether it's somebody passing away. I recently got really terrible news that a good close friend of mine, her cancer came back and it doesn't look good. And I remember just listening to the conversation and, deep down inside, I mean, this is somebody that I've known since I was in my 20s. And she's a mother of 4 kids, beautiful husband, just a beautiful family. And I immediately started to think of like the destruction that this cancer is going to cause, right? Children with no mother. And, there's several ways you can look at that. You could break down and cry because I even told my wife, Aubrey, I was like, after I got off the phone, like my hand was shaking. Like I was really, like I had held the emotion in while I was listening to this mutual friend talk about our other friend. But I thought, there will come a point where I may be in a room with her family and hopefully I'll have the wherewithal to be stoic, to just show that like, no matter how much pain you're in, there is a way out of this. This is kind of a process of life and it's easier said than done. I'm not saying I'm there. I'm just saying like that would be an example of like a noble attainment for me. Yeah, that's just my own personal, take, but.
Well, I think, Raph, I know we can all relate to that, because we've all, man, cancer is a real bastard. As soon as you said that, I went back to the moment I thought about when, you're saying you should be the strongest man at your father's funeral. Well, unfortunately, Melon and I have had to stand there already and stand at our father's funeral at a young age. And I just kind of did a flashback to when I was standing there and thinking about who I was. And I wasn't the strongest man in the room. I was an 18-year-old young man, and just I felt like my whole life had been taken away from me and I was cheated. And my focus was, how am I going to get through this? What am I going to do? And completely different mindset, right? The completely different part of my life. I didn't have the mentors like I do now, and the outlook and the experience and time to process. And man, yeah, it really makes me think of like going back and being like, maybe I could have been different or somehow, but at the same time, it happened the way it was supposed to happen, I think. And now I have that time to reflect, and I have the choice to reflect and look at who I was and what maybe I could have done different, because geez, man, it's not going to be the last time, that I'm at a funeral. I mean, we're all going to be at another funeral. We're all going to be through another bad time. And, like you said, I think there's comfort in knowing that no matter what happens, as long as we're on this journey to try to figure out how to get better in all aspects of our life, not just, oh, I need to be really big and really strong because I go to the gym that I can handle anything. It's like, no, man, you got to be well balanced. And, two things I took away from listening to that podcast that you sent, I listened to on my way home from work yesterday, just took some notes, is the one was, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And that really popped out to me. And I really like that, because that applies to anything. It's just, look at what we did in the military. It's like, why do you train all the time? Well, you train for the worst case scenario to go out and execute a mission. Same thing for this. If you're always trying to train yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, all of the above, all together, and figure out how to make them all vibe together, it doesn't matter what comes along the way. You're going to be ready to attack it and persevere, not just survive it, but persevere through it and become something greater. And it went back to it took me back to another thing is, again, it's just looking at stages of my life. I think Peterson really, the way he speaks and digs deep into layers, man, just kind of unfolds chapters of my life. And, when I was training or doing some of the stuff that I do now and pursuing it, and then putting myself in extreme situations of stress or, emotional stuff, whatever, I just always remember hearing people being like, look at this guy. Look what the hell he's doing, man. He's crazy. Like who would go out and do that stuff? And I wasn't the only one, but I'm just, kind of, and when I hear this is kind of what I feel. And I reversed it, and I look at the people that I look up to that are doing, so-called crazy things. And I don't look at them as crazy, man. Like, if I'm being 100% honest, oh man, it's crazy. It's probably come from a spot of jealousy a little bit or something like that. But what the real truth is, wow, look at this guy. He's ready. And I said that to myself driving yesterday. I was like, man, how many times I look at guys and I'm just like, I wish I could be that strong. But in my heart, I'm really going, wow, this guy's ready. He's ready to take on whatever it is. That's a strong human being right there, dude. And I admired it. And I think that's what you're talking about, Raph, is like being the strongest person in the worst moments. It's not like the fairy dust gets sprinkled over. You're not a superhero. You don't have, you don't wake up one day and just puff your chest out and be like, yep, today's the day, whatever. It's in these moments that human beings can really shine and show the best of what we're capable of. And just having that sense of, wow, this person's ready is very powerful. Go ahead, Melon.
I think it's interesting, the word strength, the one that you chose, Raph, which is the obvious one is the physical element. And it's always, I find always helpful to break it out into physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And we know that those other three are the one we're talking about here. You need that physical capability for situations that may unfold. But what we're talking about is that emotional and spiritual strength, really, when those tough times befall us. And what you guys are just touching on here is, to stay ready so you don't have to get ready. When the disaster strikes, when that bad news comes, you will only have the skills and capabilities to deal with it that you have with you at that time. There's no time to go train. There's no time to go and, generate mental strength or spirit, deal with integrity breakdown so that you can face these things with a clean heart and an open mind. No. You have what you have when the phone rings at 3 a.m. and you will only be the person in that time of crisis. Like you're saying there, Mike, there's no magic dust that gets sprinkled on you that you then get to say, I will now be a better version of myself for this disaster that's befallen me. And so I think that is a really key part of what the three of us are talking about here is that the day-to-day challenges that you undertake that attempt to generate a better version of yourself, having a noble goal out in front of you that pulls you forward, that motivates you, and that has you developing yourself into a better version of yourself, like a more capable version of yourself to manifest this goal. This goal, it wouldn't be a goal if you could do it already. You know what I mean? It'd just be, I'm going to get out of bed this morning and make a cup of coffee. That's not a goal. You know what I mean? You're like, I want to provide financial, emotional, and spiritual well-being for my family, out for the next 10 years. So, right, well, that's a freaking goal that is going to take a lot of effort every day, and it's going to draw you forward. And the kind of person you'll have to be to manifest that in reality is a different version of you than you have now. It's an upskilled and up-leveled version of you. And so if you're in the process of up-leveling yourself and addressing deficiency so that you can be the person to manifest these goals, when the disaster occurs and when the phone rings, you have a chance of being the person that Mike and Raph are describing here, being the strongest person in those worst hours. Because it's not like we get the 3-month notice to move. Do you guys use that in the US military, notice to move? We have it in Australia where they'd be like, a reserve unit's on like 3 months notice to move. So if the balloon goes up, they've got 3 months to get ready. And then the different units would have a decreased notice to move all the way down to the QRF or QRA force, which could be on a number of minutes, where there's kit inspections daily and everyone's at that peak readiness, ready to go. So in life, you don't have 3 months notice to move. Like when the phone rings, that's it. You've got what you are. You are the quick reaction fighter. You are the pair of hornets at the end of the runway that are just getting airborne on a scramble. That's all you have. You have what you have. And if you have failed to act, and if you spent time on the couch and you've been eating donuts and you've been not addressing deficiencies in your life, just in a routine way, resolving breakdowns and telling people you love them, like the array of capability and skills and relationships and support you'll have at that time is going to be far deficient. And that's the reality. You are going to face that day with less resources that you call than you otherwise would have if you had been striving differently. Anyway, I've been ranting for a little bit. You had a point you wanted to throw in a little bit earlier there, Tio.
Yeah, but I started listening to you, so then that thought kind of fell away. But so it must have been fleeting. It probably wasn't even worth mentioning. I don't. Just a quick question for you guys. What would you say if you had to sit down and I put a gun to your head and gave me, and I told you, like, I demanded you tell me what your most noble path will be, or what would it be and why?
For me, Raph, it's always got a lot to do with my family and my children. And like I feel like the biggest task I've been given is, the title father. And that really means a lot to me in a very, very deep way, maybe more than most, having lost my dad at age 11. And to be able to provide a space for my children to grow and to assist them in flourishing into being adults that I can be proud of, who are making a difference and a contribution in the world. Like, there's a lot that has to be done right. And I know I know you are. You think a lot of similar stuff. But my goals of providing resources and a safe space and challenge and education, all those things as a father for the children, so that the people they are 10 years from now, and he just turned 16. So thinking about her at 26 is like a hard thing to think of. But, as a young woman now, and Michael is 14. So thinking of him at 24, who they are and what they're doing and what their outlook on life is, like, that's my goal, to have them like moving confidently into life without fear, and them looking at goals and meaning and values, and living a life based on the character ethic, not pushing for things that look good, but doing the difficult right rather than the easy wrong, all that stuff. That's how I'll measure it. So being able to provide freedom and for them to be able to get on with their lives and not have stress, and there's a lot in it. Hard for me to encapsulate it entirely, but it's definitely about being a father, and the result will be about how the children are,
Yeah. And that's why I asked. Obviously, I'll wait for Mike's answer, but for anyone listening, I mean, that's something that you should really contemplate. Like, what's the most noble path that you could take in this life that would make this life worth living? And that's kind of what Jordan Peterson kind of starts talking about. It's like, it's not an easy answer, but when you do find it, and you will find it, it completely, sets the trajectory for your life, and your life will be better by it, just by default. The world will manifest itself, and that's a powerful idea.
Well,
Mike,
if I'm being honest, I'm glad Melon went first, because you kind of stopped me in my tracks with that question. That's pretty heavy, dude. For the sake of the show, I sit here and write down some notes, and I was like, man, what is that? I keep this book next to me that I usually read in the mornings. I do like a daily devotional, but I read a lot of Marcus Aurelius as well. And actually, last night I was reading this part, and it just kind of plays into what we're talking about. And it says, "Not to live as if you have endless years ahead of you. Death overshadows you. While you're alive and able, be good." And I listened to the podcast with Peterson, and we're kind of going into that, and we always think we have time. Like, there's always time just to do stuff every single day for the rest of my life. And that changed. And one of those things that helped me understand is asking the same question to different people, particularly different people of different ages. And, if I was to go around to a 20-year-old and I asked, hey, what is freedom to you? And you live in the Western Hemisphere, it's, it's, I could do what I want and this and that and blah, 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 blah. And, get up and pursue my dreams. And it's all this crazy stuff. And I asked I think they were 88 years old. I said, what's freedom to you? And it's just, that's easy. I can get up and walk around on my own. I don't have to be assisted by my kids. And I can just go and get my own food and water and have self-respect. And that's their definition of freedom. And I was like, there's no like, yeah, USA, yeah, go west, or anything like that. It was just like, I just want to be able to get up and walk around on my own, get my own food, play with my grandkids. And that's freedom to me. And it just shows you how much things change throughout your life. And my point is, there's only so much time where certain opportunities are going to come in your life. And then once they pass, it's over. You may not ever get another shot. And that's when you're going to get your, laying on your deathbed, woulda, coulda, shoulda. I wish I would have done this more. I wish I would have done that more. But you can't go back and rewrite it. It's part of your legacy now. Whether it was good, whether it was bad, you have to own it. And, kind of what Millen and Raph are sitting here saying is they want to do it right. They don't want to have that day come when it's their last day on earth and they're sitting there going, I wish I spent more time with my son. I wish I would have spent 10 more minutes just to make sure they enjoyed that moment of their life, because now I can't. My time has passed, and ultimately all of our time passes. And I think it's so important to remember that humanity part of it that we get distracted from. Everything's like, well, I need to show up today and this, that, whatever. But you also got to think long term with the legacy. Like, what are you doing long term? I think we talked about it, man, long time ago with Tony Sr. is, what are they going to write on your tombstone? Who was this person in the quick breath that they were on this planet? If you had to pick one word to describe that person in time, 100 years from now, who would they say Mellon was? Who would they say Raph was? That'll get you into some pretty deep thinking and look at what you're doing. So I would say, matched up with last week, man, I'm a servant and my life has changed, and I know who I'm serving and what I want in my life. And like I said, in those hard times, I want to be known as dependable. In the great times, I want to be known as a multiplier. But I also always want to serve my purpose from God, which, you know, I want to be that strong person that you were describing, Raph, and Melon. I want to be that person that stands up in the face of adversity and can look around and give people confidence that everything's going to be okay. You know, because I wasn't that person, and I wasn't proud of myself. Multiple times I wasn't ready. But now that I'm training for it and I want to be ready, when it does happen, I'm going to be like, yeah, nothing's changed. I'm already ready. I'm good to go. Like, who's with me? You know, and then when you see the other people that are putting in the effort and on that same path, on the same journey, man, life just gets easier in that sense. Life isn't that hard. It's like, yeah, we knew this was coming. We already trained for it. We expected it. Yeah, it still sucks. It still hurts, but man, look at where we're at versus where we could be. And we don't have to go back and say, man, we wish we could have been better right now. You know, that's a great feeling. That brings comfort. That brings confidence. So that's all I kind of wrote down, guys. Like sitting there listening, to be honest with you. I was like, man, that's a heavy question, but I'm going to take a shot.
No, it is, man. It's not a simple answer. You know, it's something that I think the individual needs to sit down weeks, if not months, to really understand, you know, what their, not the purpose in life, but like what a noble path would look like, because it's not easy, right? I mean, what is that? You want to feed 100 orphan children? The idea is to make this place better, to leave it better than it is. You know, start with your family, start with yourself. But that's going back to Jordan Peterson. That's why he says it's important to, you know, because he'll just talk about how a lot of people kind of dismiss the routines that they do every day. And he's like, you're absolutely crazy. It's like, if you do the arithmetic, that's where you spend 80% of your life, is in the little things that you do every day. So those are the things you need to do, and do pretty goddamn well, right? Like if you're going to get up at the same time every day. You know, if fitness is your thing, you need to work out every day. If you have a family, you need to love on them every day. And, you know, again, in a perfect world, that's how it would happen. We know that's not the way it really works sometimes, you know, because life is messy and it's complex, but your routines are literally 90% of your day. Those are the things you need to hone down. All the other frivolous shit, like winning the lottery and buying a car and buying a house, those are, you know, once every 20, 30 years. It's the stuff that's every day. If you focus in on that stuff, your life will just like take a trajectory that you would have never even seen.
To expand on what Raf's talking about there, Peterson is referring to things like what your routine is like when you leave the house, regards to you and your family, what it's like when you come home, how you greet your spouse, how you greet your kids, how your evening meal unfolds, what you do, the things that you do that are a few minutes long, but you do them every single day of your life, or perhaps just on your working days. But that's where he's like 5 minutes multiplied by 5 working days, multiplied by how many working years in a relationship. And he's like, if you can bring those things into a state where you're with intention, you've created them as a goal to have them something very special. So, for example, it's not like it doesn't, I don't know. My ones are stuff like in the morning, I get out of bed, the alarm goes off pretty early for me when I'm here, and, you know, I'll jump in the shower and so on. And every single morning I come downstairs, like in my flying suit, and there's Cherry. She's made coffee and we have coffee together in the morning. And it's like, can be pretty stupidly early. I know, I know Raph knows how early it can be sometimes. And I go out the door with, like, she's made me a thermos of coffee, and I've got my little bag, and I go and get in the car, and she stands in the door and she waves to me, you know, as I drive the car out. I stop and I look, and we look at each other, and off I go. So, like, that's pretty good, you know. And when I come home, you know, we'll find time. We'll sit together for like 5 to 10 minutes every day when I get home, and just go over stuff and talk. And one of the ones I've had with the kids for a very long time now, really like a long time, when I'm talking to them, I ask them what was the best thing that happened in their day. It's like my normal question, and they know that that's my normal question. And I just heard Annie talking to Michael yesterday. What was the best thing you knew today, Michael? I just like she didn't know I wasn't there, you know what I mean? But it's just like a normal thing for them. And that has created it's got its own momentum. You know, like the kids doing it on their own. Not just like how was your day and what did you do? But like what was the best thing or what was the funniest thing that happened? But like having a focus like that creates something, you know? So that's one, having like a routine question that I'm like, this is fought through so far with 14 and 16-year-olds. I don't just get grunts, you know, one word answers, good, you know, like that's a bit of banter in our family. If there's an answer, yeah, like good. But like last night, I was at rugby training with my son, and it was my first time being able to run properly, really, since I had knee surgery in September. And man, I was paying for it a bit today, but I was running along with him, passing a rugby ball to him, and he was running at the same speed as me now as a 14-year-old. And I was freaking loving it. And I was like, this is a routine I've created of participating in his sporting activity. Now it's 10 years, going up to 10 years. And I was like, this is a beautiful thing to do. And I know that maybe there's not that much more of it left in my knee. But I was like really enjoying passing a rugby ball to him at full speed last night and him running at full speed. And so they're just a few little examples of like where I've tried to have this, because I've listened to, I don't know, I must have listened to a couple of thousand hours of Peterson over the years, and getting the little things right with the people who are really important in your life, like that makes a big difference, you know, and having that as a goal is a noble goal. Has that, I don't think I wasn't trying to steal your thunder rap, but
I'm glad you kind of chimed in, because I think you did a better you found a better way of like kind of describing, I think, unpacking what he was talking about. Yeah, I mean, again, this is, man, for anyone listening, like if this inspires you, I really, really suggest that you sit down and you think about it and think about what your most noble path looks like. And it's not going to be easy. That's the thing. Like that's the idea, is for it not to be easy, right? Like the idea is for it to be a pretty surmountable goal, or, you know, whatever that looks like, you know.
What's yours, Raph? How does it look for you? Like, I know you've thought about this a lot, and I know we talk a lot about stuff on and offline. And so when you're thinking about a noble path and a noble goal and a most noble goal and a most noble path, what are the things that you're thinking about?
Yes. Yeah. So I would say mine's not necessarily just one thing. I've got a couple things that kind of in the back of my brain that are always searing. I'm always thinking about clearly being the best family man that I can be. And you know, it's one of those things where people talk about, you know, children don't do what you tell them; they do what they'll emulate what they see, right? So, I mean, I'll try to teach Soren the best that I can, but I really just hope and I pray that I'm the best, that I try to set forth the best example, you know. And I know I'm not always going to do it, but if 89% of the time that he spends around me, it's in a positive way where he sees dad do great things, then I think eventually that will kind of motivate him to kind of go in that direction. Obviously, with my wife, I want to be the best possible husband that I can be. And I know that I haven't always been, and it's something that's a continual thing of work, which is why I've talked about counseling in the past. And then as far as finances, I want to be in a position where I can help people financially. Like I want to be so financially wealthy, and I don't really have a figure in my head. Well, I do, but I want to be in a position where if somebody genuinely needs help with something, I want to be able to do it. And I don't want to make a big deal about it. I want to like put it on Facebook and be like, look, I just gave this person $50,000. Like, I just want to, you know, anonymously just be able to be like, hey, that's a good family. They're about to lose their house, and just be like, here's $50,000. Don't kick them out of their house. Like, I just want to be in that position where I could actually genuinely impact the community and society around me. And that's, you know, that's, obviously that'll come after my family is secured, but I think that's a noble enough goal, you know, because I think you only need so much money. Like, you know, you have to find your perfect amount. I don't need to be the next Jeff Bezos. I admire Jeff Bezos. He's got tremendous work ethic, but I don't want that level of wealth and work. And, but I want to be enough where I can, just impact the community. And then the last thing I would say is I want to be in a place both emotionally and intellectually where if I'm in the room, kind of like what Mike was saying, I want to be a multiplier. I want to be able to solve complex problems for people and in the, like, not for, like, I should say with people, right? So if I'm in a room and someone's having an issue, I'd like to maybe offer a solution, like a viable solution where they're like, oh, thanks for, being part of it. And instead of just, because I feel like too many times our current society is more about just taking away and destroying shit and, like, because that's the easy thing to do, right? Just being a negative Nelly and talking about how everything sucks and you're an idiot and you're, fuck you. Like it's so easy just to go down. It takes no energy, but it takes tremendous amounts of energy to look across the aisle and find someone who you don't necessarily like get along with, or you don't see eye to eye with, and be like, there's got to be something in that person that I could admire, and to first of all, get yourself in that frame of mind and then actually act on it. I mean, you might as well talk about like fucking, free climbing El Capitan. I mean, that sometimes seems damn near impossible in your own head.
They're such good goals, man. To talk about, family man, father and husband, and then being in a position of strength again in a financial way where you're able to be in a position of, you've reached financial peace perhaps for yourself, and now you're able to step to the next level of financial contribution where you're able to make a difference around you. And I think that is a very noble, very, very noble goal, because the acquisition of resources, it's like, what is the end state? Like, what is this all being done for? And if you are like, no, I want to be in a position where people around me are taken care of, and it starts with you, immediate family, and then it ripples out, right? I think they're fantastic goals. And I know you already are the fourth one, mate. You already are the person who helps solve complex problems for people around you. I know you're already doing that. And the first two you're already doing as well.
Raph gives me complex problems. He gives them to me. He points out things that I can't help, like my hair or something, and just makes me, lose my mind. So you do both, Raph. You help fix other people's, but you give me complex problems to solve, which ultimately makes me better. So I just want to say thank you. But
you're an idiot. You're welcome.
But one other thing that, again, man, I get so much, it's 7:55 a.m. here. This is how I'm starting my day out, with a conversation and an outlook. I love talking about these things. And I guess to build upon, we're basically talking about being these things in these moments. And I just wrote this down because this is a thing. And I think it's for something that anybody that has a role where it requires a risk to your own life or others. But the example that popped in my head. So I think a couple of years ago, there was a tsunami in Japan, and it hit like a nuclear reactor, and there was nuclear waste and different stuff going on. And all of the, talk about a stoic society. I do respect them for this. All of the older people, the grandparents and everybody else said, hey, we will go to the site and clean up. We will go and risk our life to clean up the area and do whatever, while the younger people and the children stay away. And their thought process was, we've already led a long, loving life. It's our responsibility to make sure the next generation endures and is able to move on and enjoy a long, healthy life as well. And the children to become men and women and, all of that. And I was like, wow, man, like, at what state do you have to be at, as a person, let alone a society, to think that way? Like, it's very special. And I guess at some point when, we'll keep, for the military, is like you raise your hand and say, yeah, I'll defend and give my life. And, maybe when you're younger, you acknowledge it, but it's not like super deep yet, until you've experienced a lot of stuff. But, with the military, but with life, I want to, I think about it often. But I only hope in the moments that maybe are presented to me. Man, how do I say this? And it's pretty deep. If there's ever a moment where it's split second, where I have to make a decision, it's like my life for my friends. I hope that I could have and manifest a sense of peace that it's okay. Like, I don't think we could ever really dive into it, but I think about a few of my friends that have died trying to save my other teammates and gave their life. And I wonder what was going through their head the last 5 seconds before they jumped on a grenade, before they took a bullet for another guy, before they pushed him out of the way and they got killed instead. I wonder if they were like, yeah, this is okay. Like this is, I don't know, but I guess just in my heart, I hope that I'm able to manifest if that day comes where it's like, yeah, like I'm not selfish in that sense of just like, man, this is bigger than me. And I'm willing to, maybe that is my legacy. Maybe that is my journey, is to become something to build. And if I ever have to do that, can I just do it without the hesitation of, well, I'm not done yet, or I don't want to go yet, or you know what I mean? Like, I know that's really hard, really deep. We could probably do a whole episode or 10 on that, but that's something that goes through my mind when I'm thinking about my life and what I'm doing and my roles and who I'm serving and everything, man. It's just, that's kind of scary, but at the same time, it's a goal. It's exactly what we're talking about, is like, man, if that's what it comes to, am I going to be able to meet the mark for the right reasons? So I don't know. I just felt like sharing that kind of just really hit me. I'm going to think about that throughout my day.
Yeah, I know we're about to close up, but just to add to that, it's funny, as soon as you started talking, I was thinking about one of your teammates that did exactly that. And I don't think it was a thought process. I think when you genuinely love somebody, where you're willing to lay down your life, like it's not a thought. Like, I was just thinking of, when you were talking about this, I thought about, if I'm walking down the street and it's between me and whoever that's about to hurt my family, especially my son, my wife, I don't think I'd think about it. I think I would just react. I honestly think most of us would react, right? I mean, it's not just a manly thing. I think women would do it, right? Like you see these videos or you hear these extraordinary stories where mothers will go through, hell and back to save their children. It's an instinct. It's just this. It's like your body immediately goes into fight or flight, and you decide, fuck it, we're fighting.
Yeah.
Like, and I think death is not even an afterthought. It's like whatever.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. I mean, yeah. I mean, what do they say? After the first bullet's fired, a man's brain turns into water and pours out of his ears, and all he has to go off of is instinct. Have you heard that before?
I haven't, no.
Yeah,
No.
so it's kind of I guess it's from my side of things with the water, but but I guess that's true, that you do train for certain things, but I've had moments before where I'm scared shitless, like I jumping out of a plane or something my first time, and I'm like, oh God, if this is it, you know what I mean? Like, I don't just jump out of the plane, just, oh yeah, here I go. It's like, man, my mind is kicking. Like, what happens if my chute doesn't open, and what if I get to the ground? What if this happens? What if that happens? It's like, in those moments, it's like, I don't know if I'm gonna do it. but I see what you're saying, man. And yeah, I mean, the reaction is just like, oh yeah, my teammate's down, I'm gonna go grab him, like, no question. Like,
no.
There's that side of it, but maybe there's other times where it's like, hey, we have 1 minute to go out there and figure this out and save this person's life, and you probably ain't coming back. It's like, man, what's going to go through your head in that 1 minute?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I think that's the heart of what we've been talking about. That you're doing a lot of stuff every day, like professionally, Mike, in this example, and in the rest of our lives, in areas that we've been talking about, so that when that moment occurs, we are doing our best now to equip ourselves to act in the way that it is, as Raf says, the most noble path. so that should that day come, you are manifesting your best self, the self that you would be most proud of when the time is the hardest.
Yeah.
Wow. Great topic, Raf. Thanks very much for bringing it to us. So aiming at goals, carefully select your goals because you're likely to manifest the thing that you're focusing on. And as Raf said at the top, if it was just some superficial facade that you're focusing on, you're going to fill your life with those kind of people, right? So strive for the most noble of goals that justify your existence and that offset the suffering of life and that generate meaning and bring out the best of you. And it's going to take daily efforts. And there's the daily disciplines to focus on the little things that we do repeatedly every day and having intentionality around them to try and make them beautiful and as good as possible. And if you can see a way to improve it, you just immediately improve it and try and make it that much better. There's a lot to love in Jordan B. Peterson. All right. Was there any final thoughts you wanted to close with there, Raf?
No, man. This is a topic we can go on for days, if not months. I think, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, you hit a lot of freaking great high points in this episode, Tia. How about you there, Mike? You got any final things you wanted to just drop before we close?
Man, yeah, there's probably 10 different things in my head right now. So I'm just going to say that what pops out is, what are you scared of? What scares you the most? What thing pops in your head? And you shouldn't live in your fears necessarily, but you should recognize them. And I would say, who are you going to be when that thing shows up at your front door? You know, who do you want to be? Do you want to be balanced? Do you want to be the strongest person in the room? Or do you want to be the person that has to be dragged through the room, because you have no control over anything that you're feeling and, it's kind of chaos going inside. There's 10 different things popping in my head about who I want to be and where I want to be and in certain moments and everything. But I guess just take it one at a time, write down some things about how you envision. We talked about the power of envisionment and seeing yourself do good. More than likely you will do good. Or it's also in reverse. If you see yourself doing bad, you will do bad. And I would say just listen to this. Maybe we can put the link out to that Peterson episode so people can hear it, because it is very, very powerful. It's a great compilation of some of his best work. And man, take some time and reflect on these big things, because life is not so busy that you have to think about or that you shouldn't be thinking about some of these things that we've covered. So anyways, great topic, Raf. Great way to start my my Friday going into the weekend. It's going to be good.
There was a good little tip just there right at the end from Mike about considering the things you fear, like thinking about what is it in life that you fear the most, and then who you'd have to be to avert that or to be your best self in that situation. And another one is who you look up to and what values and what noble path are those people on, and why it is that you look up to them. And it could be family people, it could be famous people, it could be people you know personally or from afar. All right. So until next week, take care. Send in the feedback. Let us know what your goals are and what you've gotten out of this episode. We love hearing from you guys. Take care.